Okay, Sig Sauer Guy here, and this is going to be another review video of a trigger upgrade option for the P320. This one's going to be the competition trigger system from Gray Guns. You can get this off of their website. This is another drop-in kit similar to the Apex, just a lot more involved in the Apex. Has a lot more parts and pieces, and you've got to disassemble the FCU further than just the trigger bar and the trigger shoes. So in their kit, you're going to get a brand new custom polished sear. And then you get your choice of either a straight trigger or a curved trigger. In this one I have the flat straight trigger. You get a new set of competition sear springs, a competition trigger bar spring, an over travel stop tube similar to the Apex, that little tube that goes over the pin, and a micro polished extended safety lever pin. So like I said, this is not the easiest to install out of all the available options, so make sure you watch the video through a couple times so you're a little bit more comfortable. And you can decide if this is something you want to tackle or maybe have a local gunsmith install it. So with that, let's get started. Okay, so I've been working on trying to keep my videos a little shorter, but with this one I'm not sure if it's going to be possible. So let's get started. First thing we're going to do is make sure our magazine has been removed and lock our slide to the rear. This one I have the fat guide rod in from Gray Guns, and my takedown lever is pretty hard to turn a lot of the time. So that's where something like this armor's block comes in very handy to give you that extra leverage to turn that takedown lever without scratching the finish on your firearm. So we'll remove the slide and then push out the pin, and we'll remove the FCU from the grip module. Okay, so this already has the kit installed, so basically we're going to break this all down and then we're going to put it all back together. Okay, so the first step we're going to do is remove our trigger bar and our trigger shoe. So the way I do this is I basically just kind of lift up on the back of my trigger bar. There's a little leg that comes over into the sear housing. So if you lift up, you can see that little leg right there, and then pull the whole thing out and around the back of the sear housing. Okay, and that'll allow me to slide my trigger shoe out just like that, and then I can remove my trigger bar and my trigger bar spring. And we'll just kind of keep everything in order here so we have a process to put things back. Alright, so that's all off there. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove my slide catch. So all we're going to do is just push on this big pin here, pull it out to the side, and I turn it upside down because there's a little spring on here that's just held on by grease right now. You don't want to lose that. So we'll put that there. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this safety bar, this black one. In order to do that, we got to push this pin out. Okay, and this thing, the pin on this for the Sig armor's block is the exact same size as that hole, so it's made for that pin and several other pins. So you can already see I have the over travel stop tube on here, so I'm not going to make sure I don't lose that. Yours is not going to have that. It's in the kit. Okay, so that's one piece that comes in the kit. And my pin comes all the way out because I've pulled this apart a million times. Yours might not come all the way out. It might come out like that far and stop. That's fine. You do not have to remove that any further than that. And then my next step is this bar here. There's a little spring behind it. There's a little spring in this little window here. Okay, it's pushing on. There's a leg that goes inside that slot from this bar. All I'm going to do is I'm going to get my 90-degree pick as close to the front of this as possible. Push down on that spring, pull the spring back, and then lift the arm out. Okay. Actually, first what we're going to do is you want to angle this to the side. This bar, I want it sitting in here crooked. So you push down on it and pull it over to the side, just like that. See how it's crooked now? And then we're going to pull our spring forward and pull that up and out. And there's that little leg I was talking about that goes in that slot that the spring's pushing on. Okay, so now we have that out of the way. We are basically ready to start just pushing these 2 pins out. There's only 2 more pins holding the components in that we need to replace, these 2 pins right here. Okay, so basically you're just going to push them out. And you can push them both out, you can do them one at a time, it doesn't really matter. Just make sure you don't lose anything. Okay, so there's a big pin and a small pin. Okay, and then what came out of there is your safety lever. This guy right here. Your sear, which is this guy right here. And then 2 little springs. These guys right here. So make sure you don't lose those, okay? These are the ones that come in the kit. They're really small gauge wire. It's to help reduce the trigger pull weight as well. And then this is the pin that comes in the kit. The stock one it's black. It matches this other pin. So this one's been all polished up. Okay. So let me clean this stuff all up here, and then we're going to act like we're opening up the kit and we're reassembling the kit into this FCU. Okay, so now we'll reassemble this, and just to go over again what's in the kit, you get a new trigger shoe, flat or curved, your choice, a new polished pin, a new sear, new trigger bar spring, a new over travel stop tube, and 2 sear springs. Okay, so that's what is included in the kit. So let's get started with putting this back together. Okay, so the first thing we're going to install is our safety lever. This has a hook, longer hook on one side, so that's going to be facing forward and straight up. And then we're going to use the big hole in it. The new pin in our kit is going to go right through that big hole. Okay. In our FCU, big hole here, that's what we're going to use for that pin. Okay. So this is pretty difficult, I'm not going to lie. Patience. Okay. The trick is just getting this in there and getting it all lined up and getting the pin through there. So again, facing forward and up in the FCU towards me. So I'm going to rotate this on its side. I'm going to slide it in there. And then I'm going to use a punch to line up all 3 holes. Okay. So basically, if that was my pin, I'd be all set. So I have that lined up. What I'm going to do is carefully remove my punch and try to slide my pin down in there. Just like that. Okay. Takes practice and patience. So again, all your pins going from left to right. So now that's in there, my next step is my sear. And you'll see on your sear there are 2 pins or posts right here, one here and one here. Those are what your sear springs are going to sit on. So trick, put some grease on there. And then what we'll do is we'll take our sear spring, one on one post, and one on the other post. straighten them out, just like that. So in your FCU, if you look with a flashlight, you'll see two little channels in the back here. That's what your springs are going to go down inside. Okay. So again, just kind of straighten them out best you can. I hold mine like this. Just kind of set it down in there. Just like that. Through here. And the spring's going to want to rotate it forward. That's why I have my finger inside here pushing against it. Okay. So we're going to take our other black pin that came out. Basically put it in that other hole. We're just going to kind of move this around until it finds its way through it. And that one will push all the way in, pretty much flush. Actually, it sticks out on this side, okay? The other one doesn't go all the way in because it's got a head on it. And it'll be sticking out a little bit on this side. So we have that all together. Safety lever is in the proper position. Make sure that's in there. And we can actually do a little function check here on our sear. Springs are operating properly. So that's kind of the hardest thing of this whole process. And then make sure your pins don't fall out. You get this far and they fall out. So my next step is to put my takedown safety lever back in, which is this guy right here. Okay. And again, a 90-degree pick. There's a little spring inside here. I'm going to grab the very front of it, pull it back, drop my lever down in there. And then remember how this is on an angle when we pulled it out. Just like that. Remember I was crooked in there? And then I got it sitting like where the front of the spring is. So all I'm going to do is lift it up, grab the front of my spring, pull that back, drop that down in there, hold it down in there, and then slide this over and pull it up. You got to go over and up. It's got to go into a little notch here. Okay. Can actually do a function check on that too. The spring is working fine. So my next step is to put this over travel stop tube in. Okay. So for that we're going to use a pair of pliers, some needle nose, and again, so your trigger is on this side, your trigger shoe, with the arm of it going up the side here. So you don't want this pin sticking out this side because the trigger is going to hit it. So like I said, all pins go from left to right. So we're going to get that started on this side. Okay. And then all I'm doing is I'm going to grab my needle nose, just like this. And I'm going to put it, that pin right through it. So I basically got to pull this out as far as it'll go. And then make sure you push that all the way in. Okay. Flush here so your trigger's not going to hit anything. So next, you don't have to put your slide catch in. I put that in last because it just gets in the way for the trigger of the trigger bar and the trigger bar spring. So if you want to put a couple dabs of lube here, grease, a couple dabs here, because that's where your trigger bar is going to be riding against. It's going to be going back and forth like this. A couple dabs on your trigger shoe where it goes through the FCU. That'll be fine. So the easiest way I've found to do this is put the spring, trigger bar spring through your trigger bar. put it through the back side of the hole. Rotate this around. The leg on my trigger bar is behind the steer block. It's back here. It's ultimately going to end up inside. Okay, but right now it's behind it. Trigger bar can lay flat on my FC right here. It's not up on this high spot, it's down in the lower spot, flat. So then we'll take our trigger shoe, put it through there, line up the hole. The hole on your trigger bar goes, or your shoe, the hole on the trigger bar, the pin goes through it from your trigger bar shoe. Okay, and I'm holding it so it can't fall out. And then all I do is I use my finger here to push the trigger back while I rotate this out, around, and drop it in. That easy. You don't have to bend this or break this or whatever with needle nose and all that stuff. Super easy that way. Okay. And then again on our slide catch, if there's a little spring, there's a little rubber puck that goes in the hole here. If that's falling off, just put a dab of grease on there. It'll like glue it in there so it doesn't fall. And then basically this last big hole here is what this pin here is going to go through. So I usually hold this upside down so the spring doesn't fall off. Kind of line up my holes, push down on it, collapse in that spring so I can put my pin in, just like that. Okay, that's it. We'll put it back in our grip module, put our takedown lever back in. Make sure our guide rod is centered, and reinstall the slide. So that's how you install the Gray Guns competition trigger system. So next we'll go over the numbers. Okay, so to wrap this up, I basically had all the factory parts installed and then all the competition trigger system parts installed, and I put it in this jig, which most people are familiar with, and I measure the total trigger travel, the take up, the creep, the over travel, the reset, and then I use the Wheeler pull gauge to do my trigger weight. 5 pull average is what I usually do. So basically we have the Gray Guns competition trigger system here versus the SIG. I use the SIG factory version 1 flat trigger, not the updated one that comes in the X compacts. So total trigger travel for the factory parts was 0.440, and then basically we're talking from full rest all the way till the far back. Okay, 0.440 for the factory parts, 0.310 for this competition kit, so that was an improvement. Take up, basically the amount of trigger travel from full rest to the wall, okay, where the trigger's not actually doing anything mechanically in here. Okay, factory 0.195, and the competition Gray Guns comp kit 0.140, so a little bit of an improvement there. Creep is basically from your wall. That's basically to your field resistance there, and then pulling until it trigger the gun fires. That's your creep. So the SIG factory parts 0.105, and then the creep in this is 0.150. So it's longer than the factory creep, almost by half. Over travel, basically the amount of trigger travel after it breaks, and how I measure that is the total trigger travel minus the take up minus the creep. Whatever's left is your over travel. Because of the tube that was on the pin inside here, it almost eliminates all of it. 0.20 is what we come up with the comp kit. Over travel in the SIG factory is 0.140, so significant difference there. Reset, basically after you fire, the amount of trigger travel going forward until it resets and you can fire again. 0.250 for the factory, 0.190 in the comp kit. So creep way longer, everything else has been improved upon. This is where this shines basically, and if people choose this kit, in my opinion, it's the reason why they choose it. It's because of the trigger pull weight. Out of all the options available, it is the lightest. So the factory parts in here, the pull weight was 4 pounds 15 ounces. With the Gray Guns competition kit, it was 3 pounds 9.2 ounces. So a little over a pound difference with the comp kit. So there you go. Basically, you got to decide what is more important for you with any trigger upgrade. Do you want a lighter trigger, or do you want a better, shorter feeling when you pull the trigger? For me, I prefer a shorter trigger, like in this one here. There's barely any take up at all. A very defined wall. It just stops, and then barely even push it, and it goes off. Very short reset. So this is my favorite. The only thing I don't like about this is how spongy everything feels. There's just really no defined where the wall starts. I can start feeling resistance, but it's not like a sharp stop. It's just kind of the more you keep pulling it, the more and more it gets. So I know the reason why they design it like this is for the drop safety and all that stuff. So, but in a range gun or a competition gun, I'm not as worried about drop safety as I am performance. So I did use that for quite a while until I started experimenting with these other trigger options, and I've just found stuff that works better for me. So there you go. That's the competition kit from Gray Guns. You can get it on their website. It's $129. With a little practice, it's doable for anybody to install at home. If you don't feel comfortable and you want to have a gunsmith do it, then you got to factor in that price as well. So that's my review of it. Thank you very much for watching. Have a good day.